It always happens right before we're about to go live. Damn it.
Always.
Hello, everybody. Hollis Citron with I Am Creative and Express Yourself Publishing. And we're just moving through today. And this is the third interview today. And so happy for you to meet TJ Walsh and Invisible No More stepping into the spotlight. These are these amazing co-authors, 17 of them in this book. And we are live in Australia at this time, and they are asleep and soon to be waking up. And that's the beauty of the whole time zone thing. And we will be launching all of the other links will be launched tomorrow, Friday the 8th, at 9 a.m. in whatever time zone you're in. So, all that being said, TJ's chapter is entitled Using Creativity to Find Your Authentic Voice. And I am going to read his first chapter and use it as a jumping off point for our conversation. So my eyes are looking over here. So here we go. So, do you remember the 90s cartoon comedy Pinky and the Brain? Well, let me fill you in. Pinky and the Brain are genetically enhanced laboratory mice who reside in a cage in the Acme Labs research facility. In each episode, Brain devises a new plan to take over the world, which ultimately ends in failure. Due to the impossibility of Brain's plan, Brain's own arrogance or overconfidence, Pinky's bumbling, something Brain didn't consider, circumstances beyond their control, or multiples thereof. The bulk of every episode involves one of Brain's plans for world domination, with Pinky's assistance and the ultimate failure of that plan, with some exceptions.
So,
Tell us more.
hey everybody. I'm excited to be here. So the Pinky and the Brain, like that was a cartoon that I watched in the 90s. And I always, like when I think about my friendship with my childhood best friend, who I talk about that relationship a little bit later in the chapter, I always think about the Pinky and the Brain cartoon series. And, I was Pinky, and my friend was Brain, and he wasn't arrogant, and I don't really think that I'm all that bumbling. But what was true for us was that we were kind of out to dominate our own world, and we were given too much responsibility when we were young. We had all of these harebrained ideas. Some of them worked, a lot of them didn't. But the reason I always go back to the Pinky and the Brain image is because of the one of us is the boss, the other of us kind of follows along and tries to make it happen, however he might. And so my friend, who I call James in the chapter, it's not his real name, but um, he was kind of coming up with these ideas. I always viewed him as smarter than me. He always was maybe like one step ahead. He was a year older than me. But what I had that he didn't necessarily have was more of an outgoing personality, more of the extrovertedness. So he would say, do this. And then I would say, we're doing this. But that kind of went for a really long time. My friend and I grew up together. We met when we were early elementary, or not early elementary, late elementary school. And then we got our first kind of high school jobs together, which led into our after college jobs together at the same place, which then we left that place and went to the next organization together. And then ultimately what kind of broke that kind of trajectory there was I got laid off and he didn't. And I was faced with the first opportunity to kind of fly solo and find my own voice, use my own voice for myself. And the first time that I really believed I had the ability to, and I took it and I started my own business. I started another business. I started teaching. I got my master's in counseling psych, and really, haven't looked back. But it was really weird to be separated from that little codependent friendship relationship there that we had going on.
Yeah, because that's a long time. That's from like 10
Yeah.
years old to
Yeah.
your late
That's like
20s, your 30s. Like that's not
exactly,
here.
exactly. Yeah. Yeah. And he's doing great now, doing his thing, I'm doing my thing. Our lives have kind of diverged from, that point. Um but not because of bad reasons, just because we're both living our lives now, like doing our thing. He's doing really well and I'm doing really well. So I'm glad that I broke out of that and found my voice that way.
So this is the whole so with the book being called Invisible No More. So this is where and you've spoken about it, but I don't know if there's anything else that you want to highlight on it. I mean, from what I'm hearing, the invisibility came in because one of you play different roles in relationships. So there is that kind of balance. It can be
Hmm.
perceived as a balance. Well, these are your strengths, these are your strengths. Let's balance each other out. But then it becomes codependent because then it's like, wait a minute. So maybe I'm not good at that. Like, well, he always does that. She always does that. So I'm not good at that. This is my role. So
Right.
it's like we stay in our lane, but then we don't become more expansive or even realize that, hey, I'm actually pretty good at that. I just never
Yeah.
realized I was good at that because I didn't have
Yeah.
the chance to explore it. So, yeah.
There's like some, in the chapter that I wrote, I have some different anecdotal stories that kind of play off of that kind of that theme of, am I good enough? Right?
Yeah.
I think I fell into I don't really know why initially I fell into what I believe my role was in our efforts towards world domination as kids, but um, I did for most of my life, and even now I combat it on the daily, because I think part of being part of the experience of an entrepreneur or an artist, which I am, is coming up against this imposter syndrome kind of situation all of the time,
Yeah.
right? A lot of what I do, well, no, I have a lot of education and training. Don't run away from me if you're in therapy with me. I do know what I'm doing. But as far as the business part of it goes, a lot of what I do is fake it till I make it kind of stuff. And I just put it out there. I take imperfect action over and over again. But for the most part, there's this piece of me that says, what are you doing? You don't know anything. You don't know what you're doing here. You can't survive as a
Mhm.
painter. How are you going to make money? You're no good at this. No one's ever going to buy your work. You're not as talented as that kid over there is.
Yeah.
Who do you really think you are? And I think what why I remained so long in that role as a young person or a younger person is because it allowed me to feel a little bit more comfortable, I think.
Yeah.
Right.
Definitely.
Right.
Mhm.
And it was really scary the day I got laid off from my job that I was still working with my friend on or at, in, wherever. Um, that, um, it was really scary because all of a sudden I was out there on my own. All of a sudden, he still had his job uh, and was advancing in that organization, and I was let go. Right.
Mm.
But I was also, they tell me it was budgetary, but I do believe that it was budgetary, but I also believe I was being a pain in the ass too, because as that was going on, I was finding that I had opinions and I had
Mm.
perspectives and I wanted things and I would ask for them over and over again, or I would provide a different uh, point of view. And I think in the chapter I said that I realize now that I wasn't really that nuanced in my communication. And so I
Funny.
think that also maybe led to my downfall there a little bit. Because while they said it was budgetary, they rehired that position, pretty pretty quickly for less money, I'm told, but still.
Mm.
But yeah,
Yeah.
like this question of imposter syndrome all of the time. I went to art school. Um, it's imposter syndrome city there, right? I went in as a painter. I came out as a graphic designer because I lost the I try not to say uncouth words when I'm talking, but I lost the cojones, you know, to proceed as a painter, even though that's really who I am and what I was. But I needed to kind of hide back in something that was maybe more comfortable or more stable or sure, which ended up being design at that time. Yeah.
So many points that you just brought up. My brain is like bam, 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 like ping ponging all over the place. But I'm also thinking about that teacher that did recognize within you kind of what was going on and acknowledged it. And I think, if I'm saying it correctly, when as your teachers got used to your style, they
Hmm.
started to accept you in anything. It's like that newness of anything. When
Yeah.
somebody is doing something a little out of the norm, or that when you got fired from your job, it feels personal because it is personal. It's just like, but at the same time, it's freedom. There's like
Yeah.
that coin. It's like, whoa, okay, this new side. You never would have think what would have happened if you stayed in that lane
Sure.
and didn't do all this. It's just like it's annoying to
Sure.
hear about that life thing where, but then when you talked about art school and then that you coming through and then you got quieted down, but then you got to a point where you were like, this needs to come out.
Right.
There's
Right.
repercussions happening because of it. And then people started to recognize you for it.
Hmm. So yeah, just stepping back to that thing that you to that place at art school that you just alluded to. So I came in as a painter. My painting style is very much only me. It's people recognize my work for what it is. It's a lot of things. Sometimes it's really dense and it's really hard to get through. Sometimes it's really light and easier to get through, or more structured than other times, right? But I had my own perspective on how I wanted to communicate my stuff,
Mm-hmm.
and that's what I was really looking forward to doing when I went into university
Mm-hmm.
as a painting major. But then, like I said, I transitioned to graphic design. Now, the graphic design program at the school that I went to was and still is one of the best design programs in the country. Um, and at the time, it was well known for a very particular style of design. It was out of the Swiss Bauhaus modernist movement, which means straight lines and grids. And
Yeah.
if you know my painting, and or if you just really know me, I'm not straight lines and grids, right? Like, I have this color shirt on right now, I have this color shirt on, and then my pants, if you can't see them, are bright pink. And so, like, I put things together that don't make sense but then somehow do make sense, right? So when I got launched into, or when I entered under my own volition, this graphic design program, I didn't know what to do with myself. And I was good at it because I can conform, because, I spent most of my
Mm-hmm.
childhood conforming, right, and fitting in. Um, but I was also pushing the boundary. And my professors, who were really well known designers, or were just right next to really well known designers, um, didn't really know what to do with me. But one of the great things is that I decided that I was going to learn from them, and then I saw them kind of taking and kind of challenging their thoughts and opinions too. And that, I think, is one of the really great things in my life, is that um, I rarely meet somebody um, that I can't kind of win over, and build a relationship with, and learn from in a kind of synchronous way, each person learning from the other. And that's what I really have liked about my life. And then, afterwards, after school, I worked in design for a really long time with that friend of mine, um, but knew that I wanted more, and eventually found my way back to painting. I have a painting studio here in my home, and this is my therapy office in my home. And so, like, everything is contained. I can bounce back and forth and live my life the way it works for me in terms of what I do.
I like what you said when you said, I decided with your teachers, basically.
Mm-hmm.
I decided that I was going to make it work.
Mm-hmm.
Or that's where it all starts, right? It's kind of, you said that I decided, you also mentioned that you're good at conforming, that all these things. But once you made this decision to be like, okay, I'm going to make this work, then it's just, that's where the balance comes in.
Yeah. Yeah, I think so. I think I'm also somebody who, decides when he decides to do something, when I decide to do something, um, it's all or nothing, right? Like it it was a big deal for me to decide that I wasn't going to stick with painting and go and do something else. Um, but then like I decided that this is, what I want to do. I'm going to do it. I'm going to fulfill it. Um, it's the same thing right now. Like I'm learning how to run again after being a non-runner for many years, um,
Well,
when I was previously a big runner. And like last night my running coach had me I was he made me run 7.5 miles, and I wanted to die at mile 5.25. And I was like, I need to see 7.5 on that
mm,
screen, or else I'm a failure. That's how deep it goes. It goes to this failure place, and I don't like to feel that, right? Because it pisses me off. So I decided, well, I'm going to win these professors over, and they're going to love me, and they might even have a change of opinion at the end of the day too.
wow. Well, I want to acknowledge the running. That's amazing.
Oh yeah,
That
I
makes you
love
happy.
it.
That's amazing. Do you enjoy it?
Yeah, I mean, like Hollis, you know some of my story because I am pretty open about it, and we've talked a few times. But running was like one of the things that got me in a not so good place. So for everybody who might see this or who's watching now, back in college too, I was diagnosed with an eating disorder, anorexia nervosa, and what they were calling at the time exercise bulimia. It has a different term now because they recognize it more officially. But anyway, running was a really big part of my experience with all of that,
Mm,
and I would run like 100 miles a week. So like a lot of running. And then I stopped running, um, for I don't even know why. And I decided that I needed to do something, mainly COVID, I think, because I wasn't commuting a lot and walking around a lot. And I didn't want to, like, you know,
mhm,
go in the direction of, the COVID-19
mhm.
pounds. So I started running again, and I realized like I need to do this healthfully because I'm going to get myself carried away because I'm all or nothing. So I hired a running coach, and he's been awesome.
Mm. What's incredible about that though is recognizing what we need. It's, and again, it goes back to that word balance. It's like finding balance within it. It's like, okay, this is something that I enjoy, but I need someone to keep me accountable and keep me in line because I don't want that to go to that extreme.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It's just, we're human. So when we're actually aware, this awareness actually helps helps us grow because we realize patterns, we realize all these things and what we want and what we don't want.
Mm-hmm.
Because we can, like, we can, there are things that we can have control over in that way, and we can choose to make those decisions. So
Oh
that's
yeah,
amazing that you're doing that.
yeah, yeah. Thank you. It's newer, in some ways, because like, I think I always kind of know what I want and what I need, but I don't necessarily believe that I'm allowed to have it or should have it or can have it. Um, or if I do choose for myself, um, then I'm going to hurt somebody else or let somebody down or do some, or it's going to harm someone or something, right? Like when I was a few years ago, when I made the decision, it was probably like 6 years ago now. Was it? No, it doesn't matter. A few years ago, when I was really trying to push into and grow my practice a bit more, I needed to do something else to make some ends meet a little bit better. And I have a history of stints at Starbucks. So I was like, well, I still have my partner number. I know my partner number, and I'm gonna go and I'm gonna go back to Starbucks and sling burnt coffee again. And I oh my gosh, I'm telling the wrong Starbucks story. Wait a
I
second.
did this on my TV show the other day.
I'm telling the wrong Starbucks story. I pulled the
Here,
wrong cue
rewind
card.
everybody. Okay.
Yeah.
Good.
Okay, so original Starbucks, right? Original Starbucks was back in like 2009, 2010. I was getting out of a marriage that had dissolved, and I needed to do something lest I self-destruct even further. So I got a job at Starbucks. This is my first job at Starbucks, and I told myself, you know, I'm just going to do this for however long I need to. I have fun doing it. I get free coffee. Um, Whatever. Um, at some point along the way, I didn't really need Starbucks anymore at that time to fill the role that it was, or the purpose that it was filling for me.
Yeah.
And I decided that I wanted to quit. It took me a full year after I decided that I was going to quit to actually tell my manager that I was quitting, because I was afraid that she was going to be mad at me. Um, and I finally did it somehow. And she liked me a lot, and like we got along, and I made her laugh, and I made her life easier because I'm a really good worker. So I saw sadness on her face, and probably like oh crap, now I got to hire another person who's going to be
Right.
consistent, unlike, you know, some of the kids that I hire. But she was happy for me too, right? And I was like, why did I wait this long to do this, right? It took me a whole year to decide that, right? And then, you know, the next time, the Starbucks story I started to tell, um, you know, I went in because I needed to make ends meet. I wasn't really clear on how long I was going to need to be there, but the manager of that particular location needed to kind of have an idea, because Starbucks doesn't really hire seasonally. Um, and I told her a year, and she was like, "Okay, I can work with a year."
Hmm.
Well, I was ready. I needed to leave within I needed to leave at 6 months, and I was faced with this dilemma, right? Um, do I do what I need to do and let her down, and possibly, because I'm good at making friends, she became a friend of mine too, let down a friend, um, or do I like fulfill my stated time frame of being a year? And I decided this time that no, like I can't. So I told her that I needed to leave at 6 months. I didn't stay an extra year. And that was big. And I'm still friends with her. We still text all of the time, especially when her Starbucks store doesn't have um, the Irish cream syrup that I like.
Well, that's huge. That's huge to me. So I guess then tell us, we're getting to our time soon being over, but tell, this is stepping into the spotlight. So then what is this, like, in telling in a small way, because people are going to read your chapter, then what is this whole concept of stepping into the spotlight? How does this represent in everything that you just said?
Mm-hmm. Well, I think, you know, for me, it's recognizing and honoring the inner critic voice that is there. Um, my inner critic and many of our inner critics tend to be really mouthy, loud um, parts of us,
Yeah.
but they're really important parts of us. However, they take up a little bit too much of the spotlight sometimes. And when we get to know our inner critic and have conversations with them, and build a relationship with that part of us, ourselves, um, we can kind of say, hey, I know what you're trying to do here. What you're trying to do here is protect me, and sometimes keep me alive or whatever. See the best result possible. You're trying to do that for me. But right now, I don't need you to be that up front
Mm,
and center stage, right? You can go like sit off, stage left a little bit, and when I need you, I will call you up and bring you back and bring you out, and you can play your role. But right now, I can kind of take the spotlight because I trust myself. I know what I need.
mm,
I've been here before. I've been in a similar position before enough to know that I'm going to be okay. Um, and when I do that, I'm living more authentically. I'm not living um, so much through a lens or a filter of fear. Um, but I'm still in touch with, the parts of me that um,
mm.
keep me grounded as well.
That is so beautifully stated, because what I like about that is that you're actually acknowledging that voice and not just telling the voice to shut up.
Hmm.
Because as we know, anything that you tell to shut up just gets
Doesn't.
louder.
Right.
It's just like, you're
Right.
gonna say that to me? Okay, I'm in your face.
Right.
And you're just like, get out of my face. Like,
Yeah, it's a
then
really
it becomes
important.
this
Yeah.
argument. Then it becomes this argument. And then you're like, why did I fall into this every time? It's kind of, you're like doing this battle within yourself. But what you just explained so beautifully is acknowledge, say, I appreciate you. Let's hang out a little bit later. When I need
Hmm.
you, I'll call you. And then
Hmm.
it's like, oh, okay, I've been acknowledged, I've been seen. Now I can
Hmm.
kind of move
Yeah.
over there for a little while.
Yeah, because that part is there for a reason. It's probably saved your butt before. It's a part of you. It's an important part of you, but it doesn't have to be um, the main character, the main part all of the time,
Yeah.
right? It has a role um, that it needs to play, but just sometimes it's not its turn.
It's not its turn. Oh my God. So, TJ, tell people how they can connect with you, please.
Yeah, sure. So everybody, you can connect with me two places. One, you can go to my website, tjwalshcoaching.com. There's information there where you can get a freebie. Right now, the freebie is 4 steps to grow your creative life. You can put your email in and get that sent to your inbox right away. There's also ways to connect with me one-on-one by clicking a button. So you can do that, tjwalshcoaching.com. And then also, if you're an artist or creative or an artpreneur or an entrepreneur or just somebody who wants to hang out with artists, on Facebook, there's the Bold Creatives Collective. You can do a little search for that in the search bar on Facebook and ask to join that. That's where artists and creatives hang out and hold each other accountable. I teach some stuff in there. We teach each other stuff in there, and just post different crap all day that encourages one another and spurs each other on. So those two places is where you can contact me.
Post supportive crap. Yes.
Yeah.
So I'll put all the links in here so for easy for people to find you. And we are so grateful. Thank you for hanging out for this half hour to find out more about TJ and our book, Invisible No More, Stepping into the Spotlight, and just so much inspiration. Just in this little bit of time, just so much inspiration. And this is the beauty of meeting the contributors, so you can actually hear the voice behind the words and
Yeah, get to know the people, right?
person, even if it's two-dimensional. I was going to say three-dimensional, but right now we're two-dimensional. So anyway, so TJ, thank you for coming and chatting with us. We appreciate you.
Thank you so much for having me, and thanks for including me in this book. I'm really excited to be a part of it.
I'm glad that you're a part of it. And I have to say, it was shared yesterday, even just somebody responding and saying, I can't wait to read this because I'm at a point in my life, and it brings tears to my eyes. And
Yeah.
I'm not trying to be emotional. I'm like dramatic, but it
Right.
truly does, because this is the purpose of it. This is
Right.
the purpose, to inspire people to reach out and make people feel like they are not alone.
Not alone. Yeah, we have a loneliness epidemic going on, in addition to a viral epidemic, and I think we need to bring people and let them know that there's space for them, there's room for them, and they're welcome to take up that space.
There we go. Perfect way to end. So good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in this world, and we'll talk soon. So
See you
bye,
soon.
everybody.